Welcome to the very last episode of Ask the Raw Squad, where you guys ask questions and we give you diverse but still probably terrible advice. Today we have our guest, the most special guest, which is our mother. Yay! So Maureen Hanley has joined us and it's very exciting. Okay, this one's a question for Mom. What other names did you have in mind for us?
I wanted to call Brittany Amelia. You make that mistake when you're having a baby and you tell people what the name is you have. And I was like, oh, if this is a girl, I'm going to call her Amelia. And everybody was like, oh, that's kind of a horrible name. So I got talked out of it. And then I wanted to use it for Lindsay. And then your dad really liked the name Lindsay Elizabeth. And so I rolled. And when Heather and Amelia were born, Amelia, I said, this one's called Amelia, and you can name the other one. And then we really did debate about the names, but absolutely, by the time it got to, okay, I have two girls in my hands, I'm definitely calling one of them Amelia. And I think in the end, it is the perfect name for you, Amelia.
Yeah.
And I think all of you are appropriately named. I never feel like your names are misaligned. I always had the name Peter in mind, but it just never seemed appropriate.
If you told somebody nowadays that you were going to name your baby Amelia, they would just say, me too.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true.
The reason I love the name Amelia is because when I was a little girl, I went to church all the time, right? I come from a big Catholic family. And there was a woman named Amelia Mallard, and she just was the sweetest little, most beautiful woman. And I admired her sitting in the church pew, and she had this big burly husband, and she had all these boys, and but she was such a cool package. And so Amelia is named after an Amelia who would probably be over 100 now.
And then now Hannah Kratner has an Amelia.
And Cheryl Penny.
Oh, really?
Oh, cool.
Funny.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Did you have any other boys' names, Mom?
I think I loved Peter because I have a brother named Peter, and your dad's family has a Peter generationally, and their generational name was Peter Gordon, and I really liked that too. I thought Peter Gordon Ross was a beautiful name, so I really didn't go beyond that. So I kept that in my quiver in case I ever had a boy. And for the record, I never knew the sex of any of you, because I think that is life's great surprise. There are only a few really fabulous surprises left. And so I resisted. And while I was pregnant with Heather and Amelia, I participated in a study where I had ultrasounds over and over and over again. And the cardinal rule was the day somebody mentions the sex of one of these babies, I'm out of the study.
Wow.
So they went to great length to only ever say twin one and twin two. And all of them were threatened, because I was a really good participant.
Just when she said Peter Gordon Ross, I was going to say, well, I do have Gordon Ross now.
Oh, there you go. The Gordon happened.
You're going to change his last name?
I've been thinking about it.
To what?
I think
What?
Gordon Foot. Like Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that's really cute.
Can I just briefly mention that Peter Gordon Ross sounds just a little bit like Heather Jordan Ross?
It does.
Is that not, am I not the feminized Peter Gordon Ross?
Gordon, Peter Heater.
Interesting. I never knew about Peter Gordon. That's I'm fascinated. Yeah.
Your dad wanted to call you Heather Dawn or Heather D, because the Dawn and the D are the rivers that run close to Aberdeen, maybe? Heather Dawn or Heather D. I was like, no.
That was my life's great surprise.
If a colleague doesn't like you in general, and you've tried to smooth over the situation by explaining your POV kindly, but now the tension is affecting your ability to perform your job, what would you do?
This is one of those things where I say, even if you don't like someone, you can always be nice to them. And that goes for both people. Just be like, all right, you know what? We're just not going to see eye to eye on this, but we need to be civil. Whether or not you have that conversation with them or you have that conversation with your boss, I would say start off trying to be civil on your end. Like really just think, okay, none of this is personal. I'm just like, I'm putting you in a different box in my head where I'm not taking what you say personally, and then see if they pick up on that. And if they don't, talk to them or your boss.
I had this happen to me in a workplace, and I was really impressed with how they handled it, because there was a person who clearly didn't like me, and she was just irritating to me, just because of that resistance. And so someone in a senior position, the employee just said something one day, and it was just one more little chippy thing, and obviously there was a lot of tension, and he just looked and he said, okay, right now, both of you in a room. He went through a process and unpacked it and said, whatever you need to say, we're going to say it in here. We're going to throw all the treats on the table and decide which ones we like and which ones we don't. And when you leave, you're going to be satisfied with whatever you got out of the treat bag, and you're just going to suck it up and carry on. And it was a super good process, and he facilitated it really well. In the end, it just came out, she was just resentful, like for a bunch of things that had nothing to do with me. So she resisted any kind of, changes and that kind of stuff. But anyway, I really appreciated that process. And there's a lot to be said for just saying, what are our differences? What's rubbing you the wrong way? What's rubbing me the wrong way? And then you kind of get to a level of humanity where you just look at and say, oh, we're just two people trying to do our job, and nobody wants to have a shitty day at work.
My question for you, Mom, is there anything you learned you were doing that you maybe didn't see yourself doing?
What I learned in the process was that I had been directed to come in and kind of tidy things up and make some changes. And that was really loaded. And by making changes, I didn't realize someone else might perceive that as what you've been doing is all wrong, and it didn't have any value. I just didn't realize that. I thought, I have a job to do. Somebody's paying me. I'm going to go do the job. I'm going to be as pleasant as I can. But honestly, I couldn't tie enough pork chops around my neck to get that girl to play with me.
Whenever I don't get along with somebody, I ask, okay, do both of us want to do the best job we can for this business? And if so, what are you willing to sacrifice to do the best job? Because if you're willing to make my work a little bit worse, what you're really willing to do is make the company's work a little bit worse. So are you the kind of person that wants to sink this company? Yes or no? Because I will sit down and talk with you and try to understand where I'm coming from that might be rubbing you the wrong way. I'll definitely have that conversation straight up, although straight up is part of the problem that I'm also learning. And then you can go to your boss and say, okay, all I want to do is a good job. I have a feeling they also want to do a good job. How do we together do a good job without stepping on each other's toes?
If you're the person that somebody kind of doesn't like too, sometimes you just have to let it go. Don't send the 500 messages, that sort of stuff. Or if you're just constantly oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I blah, blah, blah? You're not becoming more likable. You're becoming just another job, and it's really, really, really annoying. So you just have to sometimes let it go. Just give that person their space. And most people, if you are nice and stuff, most people will eventually just come around to you. You can only work with somebody for so long before they just stop hating you and they give in and they're like, okay, whatever, you've worn me down. Now I like you.
I was working with someone right before COVID happened, where she was really, really getting on my nerves, and she just kept on asking me questions, kept on doing that, just kept on interrupting my work at every step. And then someone said, all she wants is for you to like her. And I was like, what? Of course I like her. Doesn't she know that I like her? I'm like, no, you were always annoyed with her. I'm like, that's because she's always annoying. But I still like her, but I had done nothing to show her she was great. I had only been annoyed because she spent all her time being like, do you like me? Do you like me or not? So yeah, just showing a little bit of love every once in a while, remembering to do that goes a long way as well.
I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty broad question. And even with the examples that you guys have brought up, it's pretty broad situations. If you don't work super closely with the person, I am always a fan of killing people with kindness. It's almost a sport. If you're at that point where you're not next to the person all the time, you're in the same office as them and you don't really like them, just love to kill people with kindness. The same of like wearing people down when they don't like you. I used to have one woman who was very cranky. I would just say good morning to her all the time. I'd see her, I'd pass her in the office and I'd say, good morning, good morning, good morning. And I could just tell she was like, can you rotten hell? We're still Facebook friends. She eventually like started saying hi back. And I think I'm one of the only people that she ever talked to in that office because I just persisted. It was a bizarre thing where I got through to her and I'm still through to her.
That's so funny.
But then I've had other situations where I've had to take it to my boss. Like I've had two situations. One where a woman like just said something so inappropriate where I just had to speak to my manager and say, okay, listen, this is what's happening and it's really not okay. And then another situation where someone was really just like borderline bullying. And when I talked to the management about that, I realized that I should have talked to them about it a lot sooner because it had nothing to do with me. The woman was just miserable in her personal life and I was just like downhill and shit rolls downhill and I was just where she could take it out. Again, this is a pretty broad answer. So I also want to say the thing about people just being a little bit intimidated by you, sometimes that's really hard to recognize. I know there's a lot of people that don't understand why they're not well liked, but they also don't understand that they're super intimidating. So it's just this thing where it's like, yeah, maybe it's because you're coming in hot and you're beautiful and smart and you've got all this shit going on and this person's just like, I hate you, you know? That just happens to people.
I think I've had to step back a little sometimes and think, okay, am I a bulldozer? Yes, no. Do I need to recognize that maybe I should go back and check on some of the bodies? Yes.
I also, like, even at 35, have a hard time recognizing that I am a bit of a, like I don't see myself as super comfortable with myself, and I don't see myself as, like, really outgoing or anything like that. But when I meet somebody, I'm always like, oh, hi, how are you? Like in Vietnam, I'm always trying to be like, come here, like, join this group, whatever, like, here are all the people that you should meet. And I'm just trying to be helpful, but I don't realize that I come off as like a big personality and I don't come off as really sure of myself because I'm not really sure of myself, but I'm really sure of like who I am in my community. And then people often after they meet me are like, and know me a little bit, are like, you really are somebody that is so confident with who you are. And that's really intimidating. And I just think, I'm absolutely not, but that's how I come across, and I'm like, oh, really? Because in my head, I was thinking though when we met, and I was like, oh my God, was I making this face the whole time because I saw a picture of myself and I looked like this. So now I wonder if you think that I look like Quasimodo, and I've been mulling that over for 3 weeks now.
The first date I went on with Anna, I had just taken a new skin cream that I was allergic to. So all of my face was shedding and like shifting down by an inch and slightly exploded. And I had somehow been like, I'd already agreed to the date. And I was like, she seems really nice. So we were on this date and all I could think the whole time was, oh my God, I am a gremlin human being. And Anna to this day, like no recollection of me looking like that. But I spent the whole date being like, so what do you like about stuff? And she was like, I just like you weren't interested in me. And I was like, no, I had the face of a gremlin woman. What famous person would you bring back from the dead?
Cringe.
Can't famous people just stay dead?
Hey, did you shoot yourself or not?
Oh, yeah.
Kurt Cobain?
Rain.
I'm going to say maybe Martin Luther King. Just
Yeah,
see what he could have done.
I love Joan of Arc. I'm
Totally.
fascinated by her. And the fact that we are still saying her name, and she was such a young girl, and she cut such a big swath, but I cannot imagine what kind of a mind she had. And tenacity and all those things. There's probably lots of other super cool people you'd like to pull out and have a conversation with, but
I'd like to know where Amelia Earhart landed.
yeah.
I'd talk to her and I'd be like, I also have your name.
Plus
Yeah.
she's such a cool chick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You have to be able to find them to bring them back.
No.
No, I think you're just allowed to bring them back and then eventually you'll see them.
It's a conjuring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know how they get famous people to interview each other? Wouldn't it be amazing to have Joan of Arc interviewing Amelia Earhart?
Think of all the different levels of technology they'd have. She'd be like, I guess I push this button, I push this thing, and it record. What?
Oh, maybe Anne Frank. I believe she deserved to be older than 12. Well, a lot of people deserve to be older, but we're talking about famous people, so I think Anne Frank would be really interesting.
George Floyd, so that he could see like and all of those people that had their lives taken, Breonna Taylor, like all of those guys, so that they could see this momentum movement happening right now, and people knowing their names.
And
Sure.
imagine if we could make somebody disappear at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, mom bringing in the murder aspect. I love that this is like, can you bring somebody back? And they're like, here's the people I want to see dead. Here it comes. Having an aunt, first cousin, and mother that have gone through breast cancer, how do you feel about genetic testing for breast cancer? So you can take a blood test to check for like mutations. It's BRCA1 and BRCA2, and it can help you know what your chances of getting breast cancer and ovarian cancer are. So would you test for it?
Absolutely. Like, I had a little scare before Christmas this year, and I went in for some testing. I thought that maybe I had like uterine cancer, because things just weren't working right. They said absolutely nothing was wrong. It's just some other problem I'm having. That was my fear, and I know that like we are in a high risk for cancer. So I went in and I had all of that testing done. Like I've had abnormal paps in the past where it just comes back not as cancerous cells but as inconclusive cells. And sometimes you're just going in and you're getting those same swabs done over and over and over again, and they're not comfortable, they're not fun. If you can know, and you can know the things that you can be doing to prevent going through chemo and radiation and that sort of stuff, then why not? And some people will like go and have the surgery beforehand where they'll have their breasts removed. And I think that's great if that's for you. Some people want to wait it out and don't want to do that. That's fine too. But having those options, I think, is really important.
Because we have so many people in our family now, testing for the BRCA gene is part of the course of my treatment. And the only reason the test hasn't been done yet is because of COVID. Well, in Canada, if there's enough evidence that, you know, like if you're the third person in your family, or I think I'm the fourth person in my family, they will automatically send you for testing, but it has to be done in Nova Scotia. So for those of you who aren't from Canada, Prince Edward Island is super tiny. So the genetic testing is not done here. It's done in Nova Scotia. So I'll have to travel to Nova Scotia. So I imagine we'll set that up because we just got bubbled after COVID with those provinces. So I will do the first genetic testing in our family. And so then everyone will be aware whether or not the gene exists in our family if we test positive for that. So then that takes it to the next level, which is, do you want to be tested? Do you want to look at elective, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Basically, as soon as you know, or as soon as it feels safe to do so, I would like to know. It's like pregnancy. You don't know until you know what you would do.
I'm super open to testing. I think as soon as mom knows if it's a yay or nay on her front, then I'll get tested. I mean, it's the same as you. Like, I have theoretically what I'll do if I get tested. Like, I think I would do elective surgery, but when it comes down to it, I don't know. I don't know what my actual reaction would be. That would be a totally different thing.
I think hypothetically, yes, I would do the testing. If mom does the testing and comes back positive, I think I would just feel confident enough that I should continue to be proactive. I'm already pretty proactive. I have to do testing every 6 months right now. So, I mean, what's going to change? I don't think they're going to like pare me down to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm already on a proactive track. So I don't really need to be told that it's genetic.
Yeah, I think we'd all probably get the test. Yeah, elective, I feel like I'd do it. But again, it's like me now saying that hypothetically versus me having to say goodbye are two very different things. So.
Mom, had you have done the testing beforehand, would you have decided to do the elective surgery before going through what you're going through now?
Yes, but I hear everyone loud and clear, and I'm super glad to hear you say it, that you can't really tell what you would do until you're in it, because When you have theoretical discussions, you're like, well, I think this is how I would behave. But it's really hard to say that. I know now that, you know, having an elective mastectomy on my second breast, no brainer, done, gone. I feel a little divorced from it already. I had a single mastectomy. I just couldn't, given the timing, it was a lot faster if I didn't do both at the same time. So, you know, there's the promise that the second one would go, because I literally just said to the surgeon, second one's got to go. Like, it's got to go. It's surprising how pragmatic you are.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how clear it gets. So I think, yes, faced with the gene, I probably would have said electively, I'll have a double mastectomy, I'll be monitored, because the rest of it becomes not really a consideration. It all becomes very lightweight when you're talking about, basically quality of life, you know? Like, I'm going to have to devote 2 years to this shit show. That's a lot of time. How you spend your days is how you spend your life. That's a lot of life. And I mean, how you choose to approach that is the second thing you get to choose. Like, how do you spend those 2 years? You're not going to be maudlin and, you know, daunted and all that stuff. But it does kind of sidetrack you from whatever you thought you were going to be doing. Not having to commit 2 years and having something elective, I probably would have done it.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I just
Yeah.
want to say that in preparation for this Ask the Ross Squad episode, I thought I would just present to you
Oh, yes.
the Ross Squad from 1990.
Aw.
And I am not, you girls know, I'm not a fan of having a lot of family pictures around, but I love this squad picture. And I can see who you were in 1990, and I can see that you are all still those people.
Teeny tiny little babies. Thanks. Okay, everyone, that is the final episode of Ask the Ross Squad, featuring our amazing mom. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you. If you like it, comment and subscribe. No more questions, but we might do a season 2, depending on if there's another wave of COVID. But thanks for being here for the ride. Thank you for your questions. I think we had over 50 questions, well over 50 questions, maybe even. So thank you for watching episode 10.
There's actually 2 things. I was doing this and then.
Right.